Welcome everyone to this session titled Current and Future State of Town Planning Recruitment, part of the Planner Live Online, the RTPI's Alternative Planning Convention for 2020. Thank you for joining us. Please do get involved on Twitter using the hashtag PlannerLiveOnline. Just to note before we start, if you take a look at your handout section on your control panel, you can find links to RTPI work and other advice related to this session in the downloadable PDF. If you're watching this session as a recording, the links will be available on our website at rtpi.org.uk/plannerlive. Hello, my name is Andrew Close, Head of Careers, Education and Professional Development at the RTPI, and I'm very pleased to be chairing the webinar. I'd like to introduce our panellists who you'll meet later from Carrington West: Simon Gardiner, Kevin O'Shea and Krishan Adams. We will hear from Carrington West as Krish presents their insights and recent findings on how the town planning job market has responded to COVID-19 and how recruiting in the sector could change over the next year. We will end the session today by answering some of your questions in the time left. Please do use the question function to comment and ask a question to the panellists, and we intend to capture all questions, provide a response in due course, even if we can't get to them all today. I wanted to introduce the session by highlighting some resources and areas of activity the Institute has recently taken forward. The web links to these and more information is contained in the handout PDF. The RTPI has developed a coronavirus hub online for members with advice on legislative changes, FAQs, as well as links to online training and free wellbeing modules. It also links to the RTPI career support pages and its employment law helpline. This is a free confidential service for RTPI members on employment and health and HR matters. Please log into your RTPI website account to access the details on that. These are unprecedented times, but the planning system has adapted well according to research published in May, being pragmatic and preparing for the economy recovery. This report presents findings from the RTPI survey on how planning departments have been responding to the current situation. It reviews early lessons and starts to assess how the profession can best prepare. Published alongside the report is a collection of essays from private sector planning professionals. We have also transformed our online training programme into online CPD masterclasses to support members keeping their skills up to date. Each masterclass includes a half-day webinar where you can fully interact with an expert trainer and work with other learners in smaller groups. There is a range of courses to book for September to December at rtpi.org.uk/training. You can also access bite-sized CPD on other planning topics to learn on the go by your mobile or tablet with RTPI Learn. The work Carrington West has done is very helpful to the RTPI's Future Planner Pipeline project that my team is undertaking to understand the current supply, skills and motivations of students and graduates and the needs of employers and universities in providing planning education in the future. This research programme will support the implementation of the RTPI's corporate strategy 2020 to 2030 and any revisions to our policies that result from this. So now it is for us to hear from Carrington West.
Good afternoon and welcome to our presentation on the current and future state of the town planning recruitment market. In today's presentation, I'm going to take you through who Carrington West are, how the town planning recruitment landscape looks at the moment, how recruitment has changed during the pandemic, the results of our joint survey alongside the RTPI, and what the market will look like in the next 12 months. Before we get started then, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Krish. I'll be talking you through the presentation today. Shortly after the presentation has concluded, we'll be doing a live question and answer session, and I will welcome in my colleagues Simon and Kevin, as well as Andrew Close, who briefly spoke before the start of this presentation. To give you a bit of background, Carrington West have had a stand at the RTPI Planning Convention for the last 4 years, and we are currently one of the biggest town planning agencies of interim recruitment in the UK, and we specialise in placing planning professionals in local authorities and central government. We wanted to do this presentation as a great deal has changed in recruitment, obviously not just in town planning, but across multiple sectors and industries. We wanted to reassure people that recruitment has changed, of course, due to the pandemic, but the need to recruit necessarily hasn't gone away. And it's the changes to recruitment that people need to be made aware of, and what can help sort of moving forward as we move out of this pandemic and look towards the next 12 months. So what have Carrington West been doing since Covid-19 impacted our industry? Between the 5 of us here on the town planning desk, we have been making over 600 calls to our clients and candidates, remaining in constant touch with them to help as much as possible. We have answered questions on the furlough scheme, redundancy, and advised on the current market conditions throughout. We've registered over 200 new town planning candidates that are looking for the next step in their careers, whether that is because of career progression or because they are looking to cut down on future commuting. We have also been utilising Zoom and Microsoft Teams, like a lot of companies have been in different sectors as well as this one, to reach our clients and candidates on a much more personal level. So what were the initial implications of Covid-19 and what did the first few weeks look like? Now, if you can cast your mind back to the first few weeks, although it seems like a lifetime ago, we initially saw a lot of caution as the majority of local authority planning teams were shuffled around and allocated to different departments, many of which still are helping out different areas. We saw recruitment put on hold momentarily as some authorities looked to drop anchor and ride out the initial wave of uncertainty that we were having. We have seen candidates from the private sector in the first couple of weeks where the smaller consultancies had to make redundancies or furlough staff look to get into the public sector and utilise their skills. More and more graduates throughout the first few weeks have approached us as their courses have finished or they are in the final stages of their dissertation and are now looking for work experience. We also saw councils looking for new ways to hold planning committees, with many looking at different types of technology. I think it's safe to say now that most have been successful with this, which is really promising. So where are we at the moment? As we see clients become comfortable with the video technology out there, more interviews are taking place. Almost all existing staff in these local authorities can now work from home, which has freed up the IT departments to focus on getting new starters set up. We've also seen as the construction industry goes back to work in the last couple of weeks, applications have risen in some areas, and where planners have been allocated to different departments, the work has continued to pile up. Because of this and the mounting pressure on some of the teams to maintain such a high level of service, we've seen local authorities use an increased volume of interim planners to get back on track. In order to get the whole picture, we devised a survey alongside the RTPI to ask candidates and clients questions surrounding the market at the moment. We asked our candidates and clients a different set of questions from across the UK, from Cornwall up to Edinburgh and everywhere in between. With our clients, we specifically asked hiring managers, key decision makers and senior planning figures within these local authorities. With our candidates, we asked questions to graduates all the way up to director level to try and get a broad understanding of the perspective from each level. Together alongside the RTPI, these questions were asked as we believed they offered us the most insight into how recruitment looks currently and how it may change moving forward. We looked at asking questions to clients that told the story about hiring and finding talent, and we asked questions to candidates that were centered around what it was like to be looking for a role during this time, how it had changed, how the process of looking for a role had changed, and what they were looking for moving forward. We wanted to know what changes were being made to the hiring process and what changes candidates have made to adapt to them. Obviously, this also helps us when candidates ring in, give them the best advice possible. Following up with some of these clients, although the survey was anonymous, we were very grateful that some wanted to inquire about further participation, so we managed to ask a couple of follow-up questions once the survey had closed. We've used this data to really understand the sort of picture at the moment and try to capture an even clearer idea of what the market will look like moving forward. One of the first questions we wanted to ask our clients was to see if and how their teams had changed from when we first went into lockdown to now. Just under 80% said they had stayed a similar size throughout, and 10% said they had to increase the size of the team. We then followed up with our clients to find out more and found some of the planners in their teams had been redeployed to different areas of the council as we'd already discussed. For this reason, we have seen our contractors be extended or made permanent. This is a much better outlook than the one we thought we would see, as during the first few weeks and the initial uncertainty period, it was being predicted that the number of applications would drop off considerably. The second question we asked our clients was surrounding the hiring process and how it's changed moving forward. Over 85% of our clients said that hiring has changed for good. Most of the conversations we've been having with both clients and candidates has included a discussion as to if the recruitment process has changed moving forward. Naturally, it had to have changed during this period of lockdown as face-to-face interviews have been prohibited. An overwhelming 85% of our clients acknowledged that despite an ease of restrictions and a return to the office on the cards for several authorities and companies, hiring has changed for good. When we followed up with our clients about how it had changed, they all came to the same conclusion. Why would candidates travel unnecessarily to an office when local authorities now have Zoom, Teams, or even Skype set up and working? The candidate doesn't need to travel unnecessarily, and our clients don't need to book meeting rooms and wait until all hiring managers are in the office, which we know can be a pain. Although 15% of the responses did say that they would continue to utilise the face-to-face aspect of interviewing, most of the clients that we followed up with agreed that this would only be after an initial video conferencing call and more of a meet the team exercise. As recruitment consultants, we often get requests to see candidates at all different levels, depending on the needs of the team at that given point in time. Prior to the survey, we believed that the market currently presents opportunity for senior planning officers the most, as this is an area our clients often struggle to fill. After conducting the survey, 63% of our clients felt the same way that we did. This was closely followed by planning officers and then graduate planners. The reason that senior planners are hard to recruit for some local authorities goes back to the gap created by the financial crisis in 2008, when more would-be planners in 2008 to 2011 decided upon a different career path. That gap has meant that planners that should have around 6 to 12 years of experience aren't readily available. Since the number of contractors went up during and immediately following the financial crisis in 2008, we've been able to help fill this void by providing interim recruitment solutions. The other notable ways local authorities have combated this gap is to provide more extensive training to junior planners and also by asking team leaders and managers to pick up caseloads of work as well as managing staff. The first question on this slide that we asked will really be of interest to both candidates and existing workers at these councils. Due to the circumstances at the start of March, almost every town planner was asked to work from home. Although for our contractors it is common to work from home at least a couple of days a week, it would have been a big change for most of the permanent members of staff. An overwhelming 98% of surveyed clients said that moving forward there will be a more flexible working from home policy. With technology also advancing the way site visits are conducted, we believe this is one of the biggest changes to recruitment that we will see. It opens new opportunities for planners that need flexible working arrangements in their day-to-day lives. For our contractors, it means that travelling further into the office 1 or 2 days a week is a more viable option, and our clients then have access to a wider talent pool. Away from the opportunities and the positives, it does have an adverse effect in a couple of different ways. One of the main ways it does have a negative effect is that our graduate and junior planners that benefit from learning from the more experienced planners in the office, being able to ask questions and picking up on bits of information that they wouldn't get through a team working specifically through Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and that level of interaction at that level that could be really beneficial to them will obviously go missing. Moving on to our second question, as it ties in quite nicely, we've put it on the same slide. It follows on because without 98% agreeing to the first question, the second is probably not likely. With a more flexible working arrangement, we've already seen through the placements we have made recently that local authorities have filled vacancies a lot quicker by being able to widen the search and pulling candidates from further afield. As we said before, some of our contractors already travel great distances to stay away and be in the office just a couple of days a week. With councils now set up to work remotely and new ways to gather evidence being worked on, it is not beyond the realms of possibility that a town planner could be halfway across the country. In the last few weeks, we've seen local authorities courier out laptops up and down the country to get people started and working. The ability to screen share with the new starter to teach policies and offer advice, also meeting the team remotely, only enhances this concept further. Although it can seem like a tricky time for some of these candidates to start new roles, we believe that with the technology available in Zoom, Skype, and Microsoft Teams, you probably end up being a lot closer to some of the people that you might not speak to if you'd have just sat down at one desk in the office. Through some of our teams using quizzes and other interactive games to get to know the rest of the team, it can actually be quite beneficial. Given that there are quite a few town planners that are currently looking in the market now for a new opportunity or a career change, the question regarding workload is extremely important. We asked, how has the volume of your workload changed during this lockdown period? Assumptions at the start of lockdown were that work would slow down, there would be less applications put in, and with planning committees on hold, there would be a dramatic decrease in workloads. This picture at the moment looks quite different, as a lot of local authorities have worked on making planning committees virtual to great success, so congratulations to them. Applications are still being put in, and councils that have had planners redeployed, as we've previously discussed, are now catching up with work. Our clients agree, with over 81% acknowledging that their team's workload has either stayed the same or increased. This is really pleasing for anybody looking for a new opportunity, as it shows that there is still work out there. There is still work to be getting on with, and therefore the movement of planners from council to council can still happen. We also asked at the same time, do you consider town planning to be a high pressure job? As Carrington West work with planners at every level, we asked this question on behalf of our graduate and entry level audience, so we can try and provide an accurate perception of what working in the town planning local authority sector really is about. Unsurprisingly, over 90% of our clients agreed that due to deadlines, the impact each application has on the built environment, and the volume of work, town planning is a high pressure job environment to be in. Although I am sure most, hopefully all, will agree it is absolutely worthwhile. This next question is really important to both ourselves as a recruitment company and also our candidates looking for a new role. We asked, when recruiting, is it essential for the candidate to have an RTPI accredited degree or be chartered MRTPI? It's a really important question for us so that we gain an understanding of what our hiring managers are looking for when recruiting, so we know what advice to give people when they register with us. With 54% of our clients saying that having an RTPI accredited degree is something that they look for when shortlisting candidates, it really shows the importance and the value of having this on your CV for those getting into planning, or the ones that are already in planning without that degree, wanting to enhance their knowledge whilst continuing to work alongside. It's absolutely the right thing to be looking at. With 26% of local authorities suggesting they require neither the candidate to be RTPI accredited or chartered, we followed up and asked what they did look for instead. Relevant degrees such as geography were being considered. Previous work experience in placement years were often outweighing the need to have a degree, and at a more junior level, just the willingness to learn. Now, clients were obviously not just getting this from their CVs, but also their interviews. But it's important that at that level, these sorts of attributes, like the willingness to learn is held in high regard. Some local authorities were also utilising apprenticeships from different places extremely well. In this slide, we chose to ask a question to help Andrew and his work at the moment as he's focusing on the career and personal development of graduates. We asked what, if any, skill gaps do candidates for graduate or junior posts have? Andrew wanted to know what our clients thought were the key attributes missing in a graduate or junior planner. It also helps us as a recruitment consultancy as it offers an insight into what we need to look for in the graduates we place and the advice we need to give them as they start their career in planning. These responses were amongst the ones that were repeated more than once. Some of it is based around the education side of things, and a couple are based on internal factors which the candidate can control. It should also be noted that, as with the previous question, it is not just education that is a factor when hiring. Confidence, using your own initiative, and the willingness to learn that we discussed in the previous slide can really be what sets you apart from other graduates and what gets your career off to a flying start. Following on from the previous question, Andrew also wanted to know what advice you should focus on giving when assisting graduate and junior planners. We devised this question to give a clear picture of what is required for a graduate or a junior planner to be successful in this sector. The answers on the slide at the moment are the ones that were repeated again like the previous slide more than once. Aside from the attributes you would normally look for in a junior level professional, having political awareness was one of the most repeated attributes mentioned. Remembering that our survey was conducted with clients in the local authority sector, I think it shows how important it is to be up to date with current affairs. Other attributes like being flexible, the willingness to learn, and also the drive and ambition and motivation to succeed. We would expect our graduates to have these as they're being proactive and approaching a recruitment consultancy to find a role for them. But having these attributes really go a long way moving forward as you start your career in planning. Also things like confidence on the phone, the ability to work under pressure, obviously tying in with the question we asked previously about whether or not town planning was a high pressure environment to work in. These are all attributes that our clients pointed out that they would like in their graduates or junior planners, and we believe that most of our candidates have. Moving on to the candidate perspective, we wanted to ask our candidates 4 or 5 questions that we believed really painted a picture of how the market looks at the moment and how it will look moving forward. One of the first questions that we chose to ask was, have there been any notable changes to the way you work that will remain changed moving forward? Naturally, there have been changes to the way that candidates work during the lockdown period. We wanted to know, in the next 12 months, would any of those practices that had changed during this time be kept? Many of our contractors have been used to remote working to some extent, but never to the level we're seeing now. Remote working was really the answer that came up most often, as a lot of our candidates believe that it will only increase post-lockdown. The demand for it will increase as well from our candidates expecting a more flexible working from home policy. And there has been tangible proof as well during this lockdown period to show that it can be productive. Another question that we asked our candidates was, would you recommend town planning as a career path for A-level students? Our local authority clients are, at the moment, keen to take on graduates and invest in them as they begin their careers. Having spoken to almost every local authority in the UK, this is a pattern that is forming nationwide, including throughout London. As such, we wanted to ask our current workers if they would recommend town planning as a career path. We asked candidates across multiple seniority levels, from head of planning to recent graduates themselves. Our graduates said that actually undertaking the work has been very interesting and the course itself is quite varied. Our high-level candidates, such as head of planning and head of services, pointed out that it can be extremely rewarding when you get to make a difference to a particular environment. Speaking to one of our principal planners involved in the Wembley Stadium application, you can see how much it means when the work pays off, and he said it really made a difference when he goes past it in the morning and he knows that he's made that impact into the city's skyline. Another question that we asked our candidates is, what is the most important factor you are considering for your next role? We asked our candidates this question because as we become accustomed to a new way of working, we wanted to know if that had changed what they were looking for moving forward. As a recruitment company, we always place people in roles that fits them and their working arrangements best. We spoke with specific candidates instead of sending out a survey to grasp different levels of seniority in different geographical regions. 60% of our candidates said that the most important factor for them moving forward was the flexibility around working from home. Around 50% of them also stated that the work needs to be varied and that the level of responsibility they have must compare to the salary that they are getting. We also asked for those that are watching that might be keen to start working on a contracting basis, what the main attraction to this way of working was for our candidates. For the majority, contracting is all about the flexibility, the different opportunities, and of course the salary. It can, we often find, enhance your chances to move up a level, a seniority level, getting different experience from different local authorities. Following on from our survey, we look at the next 12 months and how the recruitment practices might change. We believe, like with every sector, that there will be a period of recovery. In town planning's case, it is impossible to estimate how long that period of recovery will be, but we believe it will be a short amount of time in comparison to some of the other sectors like the hospitality and aviation industries. Within this period of recovery, we believe that there will be increased opportunities to pick up work as councils recover from this period, help them clear backlogs that have developed since the redeployment of some of their staff. Councils using interim staff to cover short-term need as they plan helps them avoid committing money to long-term permanent positions whilst they adjust to this new way of working and really work out what their team needs. Moving forward, the need for a face-to-face interview, which we briefly discussed during this presentation, will be used as a sort of meet the team final stage discussion instead of the initial interview. Both interim and permanent interviews will take place on the various different video conferencing tools that we've discussed. Councils allowing employees to work from home to benefit the different responsibilities that we have away from our work life. We believe that although it was heading in this direction anyway, what with the emphasis now these days on mental health awareness and also employers recognising that their employees, and in this case town planners, have responsibilities away from their work life, such as picking kids up from school. We believe that this was changing anyway, but this has just given us a sort of kick, if you like, to move faster in that direction. So moving forward, expect to see a lot more working from home, a lot more hot desking, and the need for site visits as we develop our technology to be reduced significantly. Moving on towards the end of our presentation, I'd like to raise to your attention the attached 4 documents that we have uploaded on the back of this presentation. The first document that we've uploaded is tips on video interviewing. We appreciate that is an experience that perhaps not everybody has had, so we thought we would include the best practices when orchestrating or doing a video conferencing interview. We've also uploaded a document that is especially useful to managers, team leaders surrounding mental health awareness during this period of lockdown and uncertainty, which can really benefit some of your team members. We've also uploaded a market insight report, which deeper dives into the analysis of the questions that we asked alongside the RTPI. Naturally, in this presentation, we don't have time to cover every single bit of analysis that we took from each question, so we've put that into one report. If that was of interest to you, then please feel free to download that and give it a read. On the back of that, we've also uploaded our brochure, just so you know a little bit more about what Carrington West does, and it will also include our contact information that you can see on the screen at the moment. We would encourage anybody that wants to talk about their career or their next steps to have a confidential discussion with us and you can reach us on the email or follow us on LinkedIn and ask us any questions. As we move on to the question and answer section with Andrew, we invite anybody that has any question to ask us, and we will endeavour to get back to everybody today. In the event that we miss any question today, we are also going to do a follow-up with any of the questions that we've missed to make sure that we cover them. And we thank you very much for your time and for listening to us. We hope to speak to you soon.
Presentation there. If I could invite all panelists to join me on the screen. and let's look at the question box and go through some of your queries. There's one here from David, who I think I'm possibly directing to Simon. Do you see consultants, contractors being particularly new to the profession being receptive to fixed-term contracts and the like? And is it better than needing to find new work every 3 months?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. Also, I'd like to just quickly thank the RTPI and all of our clients and candidates for taking the time to respond to our survey. With regards to fixed-term contracts, I've unfortunately been lucky enough to be in recruitment for sort of 13 years now, and unfortunately saw the last global recession, although that was obviously different circumstances. Fixed-term contract was used quite effectively by local authorities during that time. The uptake was pretty good, although job losses were hugely significant. So graduates entering the industry, as David mentions there, contractors and consultants that are used to long-term interim work, where typically the contract would be rolled over numerous times, weren't too keen. But during that time, obviously the uptake was very good. It's very good for the client, for the employer, because they get that flexibility of the kind of interim kind of 12 months, if you like, and not the ongoing kind of responsibility of the permanent employee. But also they get the obviously the much lower cost of effectively a permanent employee rather than employing a contractor. So it can work well. I think it would really depend in this circumstance how bad it gets. We're kind of yet to see what the sort of long-term effects of the pandemic will be. We're hopeful that there will be a quite a sharp recovery next year, and hopefully things like this won't be needed.
Great, thank you, Simon. I've got another question here I can see in the inbox, which perhaps Kevin, that might be one for you from Cara. Should companies be offering remote interviews instead of face-to-face at the moment? And if so, am I right to question why they want a face-to-face interview?
I think that yes, it's probably a lot more practical at the moment to offer remote interviews as opposed to face-to-face. People are now more set up to be able to do it, and it's a lot safer, of course, at the moment to do it that way. Are you right to question why they want a face-to-face interview? I would question it. I mean, we had someone recently, actually, a local authority that wanted to do some face-to-face interviews, and we questioned it, and they just weren't aware of the practicality of setting up the interviews, which we sort of took over on their behalf and managed to set up remotely instead. So I would question it, yes. Great, thank you. There's quite a few other questions coming in about RTPI membership, which I'm happy to answer offline, and I'll be doing that as we continue with the Q&A. But one here from Amy, which perhaps is to all three of you generally, but what advice would you give students who are due to complete their course now to help them improve their employability?
I think one thing that we've seen from sort of our junior planners that employees really seem to take to is any sort of work experience they can get, whether that's even sort of a couple of weeks at the end of the degree, if it's too late for you to do sort of a proper gap year, sort of working, or a placement year, then even a couple of weeks at the end of the course just working, not necessarily for free, but just maybe a 2-week placement somewhere, just to really show that you've got the practical skills to sort of transfer into the sort of, in our case, local authorities or obviously private sector companies. So I think that's massive, and don't be afraid to say no to really any opportunity that gets you that experience, as long as it's relevant, of course, and sort of you see that you can learn something from it. Then just be open to accepting any sort of experience that gives you those skills.
This is a related question, I think, from Edward, perhaps for yourself, Chris, or Kevin, but his son's graduating in 2023. What do you think the job market will be like then? It's tricky to predict, obviously,
2023,
in
yeah, very
unprecedented
tricky.
times, but just wondering what, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely
No,
difficult.
I just wondered whether there's any advice.
Yeah, I think it is definitely difficult to predict what the job market is going to be like. But we can only say what's sort of happening at the moment, and we are sort of seeing that it is starting to pick up now. And I think to get into the market, to start to to go through your course and get into it, I think any time is a great time to get into planning. It's a great career to do. If I was to go back and do it, I would definitely look into doing that sort of thing. So hopefully the market will be still strong, and hopefully it will still be busy. I think that it will be.
Great. I'm just looking down the list from Scott. Again, Krish, perhaps one for you. How are the rates being affected in the market at the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Rates have fallen slightly due to candidates sort of being without work for a while, and therefore sort of eager to get back into it and earn a living. We're seeing that candidates with greater experience are applying for roles which usually maybe they wouldn't, just given the current state of the market. So more experienced planners, potentially even managers applying for sort of senior roles. So for that reason, we are seeing sort of a slight rate decrease, but nothing too major. It's been fairly steady, to be fair.
Right. Continuing down our list, the questions are coming thick and fast now, which is fantastic, and we won't get to all of them, I don't think, in this session. But as we've said throughout the presentation, we'll be capturing all of these and making sure that we can give some useful answers. Just one here actually that's just come in that sounds very interesting and pertinent from Tal. How is the demand for employees with specific expertise, such as participatory planning, such as community planning or strategic planning? Do you see particular skills coming to the fore at the moment?
It's another very good question. To be fair, across the UK, we haven't really seen a pattern form where one particular area is focusing on a particular set of skills. It's been a little bit similar to how it was before the pandemic, to be fair. Obviously those skills are required in places, but it's not they're not specifically required in certain areas. So we haven't seen an increase in sort of employers looking for sort of planners with strategic planning expertise. It's been quite it's been as steady as it was before the lockdown in that regard. So yeah, I mean the trend has really continued right through lockdown and to where we are now, in that it takes sort of, our clients are looking for all sorts of planners with all sorts of backgrounds, really.
Your survey seems to indicate that recruitment's still strong at the moment, and yeah, sort of perhaps bears out in the fact that most skills are in demand. There's a question here I see, and one perhaps for you, Simon, from Andy. Any thoughts on whether there will be an increased demand for hiring private sector planning managers?
The private sector's, I mean, I've got the last global recession to call on in my experience, and I think entering that time, the local authority budgets were obviously set 12 months in advance. So the issues took place with redundancies, voluntary redundancies, and people looking to take early retirement going into 2008, 2009 in the private sector. Obviously, the local authority market at that time had a 12-month lag because of obviously the forward planning of the budgets. So during that time, we actually registered up quite a few private sector employees and actually redeployed them within the local authority market. So I think depending on how tough it gets, and if it does get tough, and if you can read one kind of economist's view on it, and it's polarized to another, so we don't quite know yet. But my assumption would be that possibly the local authority sector might see an influx of good private.
Oh, I think we might have lost him.
Simon's just frozen.
Yeah, that's, oh, I think he's back now. I think he was
I've
just
got
going to finish by saying I think that we should see an influx of private sector candidates sort of being redeployed into the local authority marketplace, which we have done. I think it was in my presentation that we've seen an increase certainly from that side going into local authority. I think we'll expect that to continue.
That's exactly.
There's been sort of just some general questions I know that have come in about the change to working from home, which obviously we've all had to adapt to. And Krish, I don't know whether you've got any thoughts on employers or employees that employers in particular who perhaps can't offer sort of a complete working from home package or working from home policy, and you feel that potentially hinders their chances of hiring the best candidates at this point in time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a valid concern to have. Obviously, if you recognise that your neighbouring local authority is offering complete flexibility with working from home, maybe there is a concern there about whether or not you can attract the same people that want flexibility to work for you. I think what we're seeing though is that there are still a number of people that like to be in the office, that want to be in the office, especially on the junior planning sort of side. Those guys that go into the office to learn and sort of gain the experience from sort of hearing from senior planners around them and picking up on bits of information that they obviously wouldn't get if they were just working at home. And of course, it's worth remembering, while most of us are fortunate enough to be able to work from home, there are still a number of people that don't have the right infrastructure, the internet that in place to be able to work from home effectively, or if you've got sort of 2 or 3 kids running around the house, I can appreciate that perhaps sort of getting into the office and getting away from not getting away from that, but moving past that so you can focus on your work a little bit more is really important. So we would encourage councils where they can to be really flexible with the working from home policy now that we've seen it can work, and we expect candidates in the future to sort of request that or look for that as part of the package that they want when they start working somewhere. So yeah, as long as councils are sort of being seen to sort of be as flexible as possible, I think it should be fine.
In fact, actually, Kate follows that up really. Whether in your experience, I know you sort of have a public sector to focus, but have you any intel on what sort of flexibility there is for private sector workers with working from home? How that compares?
A lot of the private sector. Go on, Kev.
I don't think it really differs massively, to be completely honest with you. I mean, if more so, then it might even be more so, more flexible with the working from home arrangements. But I honestly don't think it would differ at all.
Yeah,
if you think differently, Chris.
No, I was going to echo that. I don't believe that. I don't even think this is obviously a planning thing that we're seeing. I think it's the case for multiple sectors. I know for us personally in recruitment, we've seen that we can work from home now as effectively as we were in the office. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we, moving forward, would look to introduce this into our own sort of sector, and obviously then planning, both private and local authority, will follow the same pattern, I think.
Just a sort of maybe a wider question, Kevin, around salaries. So we touched a bit about market rates, but more widely, salary expectations, have they decreased at all since lockdown, in your view, with perhaps some less roles or more competition?
I was sort of echoing, I think, what Chris said earlier. I think rates have slightly fallen a little bit due to candidates being without work. And obviously they're really keen to get back and starting working, so they sort of are taking a little bit of a drop. And again, we're finding sort of the people with more experience, so the managers applying for principal level roles and principal applying for senior level roles. So the experience of the people that are applying and the quality of people who are applying for roles are a lot more. So there is a lot more competition. But yeah, only slightly have rates fallen, but not massively.
I think on the back of that as well, just sort of on the back of what Kev was saying, I think where more working from home has been introduced, perhaps you're factoring as well into your rate that you're not travelling, into the office. You're not paying out for petrol or public transport. I know for sort of travelling into London for some of these places can be quite expensive on the sort of train. So perhaps you're factoring that into your rate as well, and that's bringing it down ever so slightly.
All right. We've got lots of questions. I think maybe we can try and take two more perhaps before we wrap up. One from Angela here, which perhaps for you, Simon. Are local authorities showing any current hesitation to recruit from further afield because they have a long-term goal for employees to return to the office, attend site meetings, etc.?
It's a difficult one. I mean, even before this started, we worked with one or two local authorities. One in the Greater Bristol area, for example, that I've recruited for many years actually, and they, downscaled their office purposefully 5 or 6 years ago to a sort of new, smaller eco building with, only 75% sort of hot desking kind of arrangement. So their requirements is that you had to do a minimum 2 days from home, and that was, back in 2013, 2014 and onwards. So, what's going to happen, I think, is you'll see the UK become a much smaller place in terms of where people will travel to. We've got quite a few candidates that are, national travellers, if you like, and they'll go to pretty much anywhere in the UK. That will become more the case, I believe, especially with all this flexible working. So I think, a sort of cautionary tale for some employers, especially on the local authority side, will be that, you're no longer just competing with 2 or 3 local councils near you for good planners. You could be competing up to 100, 150 miles away, and decent policies. With people allowed to work from home, with the local authorities much further afield. So I think, not necessarily, I don't think people will just look to recruit locally. I think, certain roles can be done kind of remotely, especially on the policy side, and I think we'll see an increase in candidates travelling much further afield, just for 1 or 2 days a week, or 1 or 2 days a fortnight.
I know, are there any geographical variations? This is from Stefano, just in opportunities there for, London versus Northeast versus Scotland, or does it, it's sort of, there's a sort of a need across the country?
There's not really been any trend of where the role's coming up. I think in regards to London, I don't think obviously it's nowhere near as busy as what it usually be, and it's probably taking the biggest hit because of the pandemic in terms of how much it's costing, how much COVID is costing councils, especially in London, where it's been one of the biggest hit areas, as well as sort of Birmingham, Essex, and Manchester, as well as another few. But there's been no real trend where jobs are coming out at the moment, but we do expect it to pick up across the whole of the country.
Well, that's a positive note to end on, I think. So there's a series of other questions, as I mentioned, around membership. I think trending questions around the sort of the type of employment around at the moment in the employment market, which I think we've already touched on. But as we've said, we will take away these questions and respond accordingly. So coming up to 10 to 3, if I could perhaps just end by thanking our panelists, Simon, Kevin and Krish, and also thanking yourselves for attending and for the questions. Hopefully you got some interesting insights and advice from today's session. Do tell us what you think on Twitter using the hashtag #PlannerLiveOnline, and complete the survey that will appear once this webinar finishes. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the RTPI, so you're notified of all the other videos as soon as they're released. And of course, with the Planner Live this week, we've got a number of videos and content being uploaded shortly. If you're watching a recording of the session, please leave us a comment. We'd really like to hear your thoughts, and hopefully give this video a thumbs up. For details of all the events happening as part of Planner Live Online, visit rtpi.org.uk/Planner Live. And just to end by saying all the best and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.